All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Katie Baker, and I'm here on behalf of Americans for Contraception. Want to start out by thanking our hosts, Zach and Amberly. They have a great facility. We've done events here before. They've made us these lovely mocktails and charcuterie. Anytime you want to get up for a snack or drink, please feel free to do so. We want this to be a comfortable, casual conversation. Thank you to Mayor Reed for making the time today and for being such a champion of contraception, and of course to all our panelists. So we're on a bit of a victory tour this week. I know some of you have been engaged in our fight for the Virginia Right to Contraception Act, which was recently signed by the governor and which will go into effect July 1st. So we are doing a series of events leading up to that effective date, July 1st, in order to continue to spread the word about the importance of the right to contraception. But let me just step back for a moment and tell you a little bit more about the organization I'm representing today. So Americans for Contraception, we started back in 2022, shortly after that Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade came out. And obviously that was a catastrophic decision on many levels, but if you read down into the concurrence that Justice Clarence Thomas wrote, he called on the court explicitly to reconsider Griswold v. Connecticut, which was the first Supreme Court case back in 1965 to recognize a constitutional right to contraception next. So they've told us what they want to do. They're not even hiding the football. They have explicitly written down their plan, just like they have in Project 2025, which also lays out attacks on contraception, which we're already starting to see. So we knew we needed to act. We have lots of partners and advocates in the reproductive space who have been valiant fighters for reproductive health and the right to abortion more broadly. So we wanted to take up the mantle of contraception specifically. So we've introduced legislation federally with Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher is currently carrying the right to contraception bill in Congress. And Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts is carrying it in the Senate side, which would make a federal right to contraception in the event that Griswold is the next case to fall. This is the anniversary week of Griswold. It's the 61st anniversary on June 7th, which was another reason why we wanted to do our tour this week. And Griswold was also the first case to recognize what's called a zone of privacy in the Constitution. It's not explicit in the Constitution, but the court found that there was an implicit right to privacy. And Griswold was followed by another case called, hi, welcome Vic. Hi, sorry. All good, we're happy you're here. Was followed by another case called Eisenstadt, which expanded the right to contraception to unmarried couples. And then was also used, that zone of privacy argument was then used for Roe v. Wade. So once the court has struck down one of those cases, finding that the constitutional right to privacy no longer protects the right to an abortion, that sets up the dominoes. So there is a legal argument to undo Griswold. So we've been working at the federal level. We first had a vote in 2022, and it passed the House, didn't get through the Senate. 195 House Republicans voted against the bill, including Congressman Ben Cline. But we're not giving up. We decided to take the fight to the states as we couldn't count on Congress to act. I think we're in about 10 or 12 different states trying to pass state legislation. We have seen success in Nevada. We passed the that was the first state we passed the Right to Contraception Act. We then saw success in Tennessee, which we honestly were a bit surprised kind of how that panned out. the Republicans actually realized this issue was so politically popular that they couldn't oppose it. So they actually stole the bill from our patron, Gloria Johnson, made it their own, and passed it. But honestly, and it was a bill that was supported by Planned Parenthood, so it was a good bill. So honestly, we were a bit surprised, but also just happy that it got across the finish line. And then most recently this year in Virginia, we have finally passed the Virginia Right to Contraception Act. Yay! And just to give a little bit of background on that bill, it's very simple, but also very powerful. So it protects the right of an individual to use and the right of doctors to prescribe FDA-approved forms of contraception. So that includes condoms, the pill, emergency contraceptives, IUDs, and it also creates from any kind of government interference by a state actor. So if a locality tried to pass something that's not as friendly as the friendly city, tried to pass something to restrict someone's access to contraception, they could actually file a civil case up with the Attorney General. So Attorney General Jay Jones would be the one to enforce that. We first introduced the bill in 2024 with she was then a state senator, now Lieutenant Governor Ghazala Hashmi from my neck of the woods outside of Richmond, and then Delegate Marcia Price, who's from Newport News. They've been great champions. When Lieutenant Governor Hashmi ascended into her current role, State Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy took up that bill and got that across the finish line. And now Governor Abigail Spanberger signed the bill. It will go into effect July 1st. So we're super excited about that. But we are now putting our focus on passing a federal right to contraception act, because it shouldn't matter. Yes, thank you. It shouldn't matter what state you live in, whether or not you can access contraception. So if you're traveling, it shouldn't matter what state you find your feet in. If you're an American, you should have the right to use contraception, because what we found, and I know we've got some providers here today, but what we found, with abortion is people are coming in from other states, right? Because they don't have access to abortion, and God forbid there are restrictions passed on contraception in other states. We're going to have, more people coming in. People shouldn't, we welcome them, but people shouldn't have to travel in order to be able to access basic health care. But I do want to lean into, the fact we are, working to pass that federal right to contraception act. Just this week, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher announced what's called a discharge petition. So the Republicans haven't let that federal right to contraception act get through committee. A discharge petition, if 218 members of Congress sign it, so we would only need between probably 2 and 5 Republicans. It kind of varies depending on vacancies. To sign it, then that would actually force a floor vote on the Right to Contraception Act. So we kicked off our press tour with a press call yesterday with Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan from Richmond announcing that she had signed the bill and calling on her colleagues to do the same. And we're also going to call on Congressman Ben Cline to sign it. Now, we know that he has opposed the right to contraception in the past, and he should certainly be held accountable for that. But one thing that does give me some hope about, changing minds and changing hearts is the story of the Virginia Right to Contraception Act. Because when we first started it, I think we did have maybe a couple Republican votes. But what we found is that some of our most vocal opponents to the bill, all right, so Senator David Suderline, Senator Danny Diggs, who are on the record speaking against the Right to Contraception Act and why they couldn't support it. When this bill finally passed, the final vote that was sent to the governor that she signed, they actually voted for it this time. So I think that is the power of advocacy. That is the power of holding people accountable, especially when it's an issue like this that has something like either 8 or 9 people out of every 10 support it. So with that, this is a victory tour. It is meant to thank and recognize all the people who have been in the fight with us a long time. I know the mayor, Vic, Penny, Abby have all done events with us before. So we really just wanted this to be a chance for us to reflect and to celebrate a little bit. And I just remember a year ago, doesn't seem that long ago, I think it was coming up on a year ago, I remember calling Mayor Reed and asking her if she could find a place in Harrisonburg for us to put a 20-foot inflatable IUD named Frida. And she did. And I remember you said, Katie, only you. But you made it happen. You did make it happen, because that is how committed you are to the fight to contraception. So Mayor, I just wanted to give you a chance to reflect on what motivated you to say yes. I think that may have actually been how I met you, was through the fight for this bill. So I'm curious, what made you say yes to us? What has your advocacy in this space meant to you? And if there's any reflections or memories you want to share from this journey, we want to welcome that.
Well, thank you, Katie. Thank you so much for all the work that you are doing, especially around this very important bill that we are celebrating, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a victory.
Cheers.
Tour. I feel like the Jacksons right now, the victory tour, right? So, yeah, I was actually going to bring Frida up. You know, people ask me, so what is something that you will always remember or never forget, you know, as your time as being mayor? And I think that is one. She called me up and she was like, hey, Mayor, you know, and she's always so, you know, joyful. Hey, Mayor, how you doing? I have a question for you. And I was like, sure. Yeah, can we bring like a 20-foot IUD to Harrisonburg? And I was like, and can you find somewhere for us to put it? And I had no idea. Like, I just didn't know what she was. I know what an IUD is, but I was trying to visualize that. Right. What are you talking about? So then she sends me this picture, and I was like, first of all, it really looks like something else, but okay. I don't know if y'all ever looked at Everyone Loves Raymond episode when the mother made this sculpture and it didn't quite look like what she thought it looked like. It looked like something that we have. So she sends this to me and I was like, where in the world am I going to put this? Because some of my go-to is like the school parking lot. You know, or Lucy F. Sims parking lot. That couldn't work. So we ended up taking it to the gym office, and if you know where the gym office is, it's right off a major, you know, corridor in the city. And so we put it up there, and people were riding. You could just really see people. Some people knew exactly what it was, and they were blowing their horns, and some people were like, what is this? But it was fabulous. And so, and you know, I really didn't care if anybody was offended by it. It was necessary, and I think it really leaned into who we are as Harrisonburg, right? We care about these topics. We care about our bodies. We care about healthcare, and so it was something that I was glad to do and support. You know, for me, I've been thinking about what I was going to share, and because this is just an informal setting, I was like, well, let me just share something that I've never shared before. That's personal to me, and why I'm connected to this, and why I think it's so important. So I am single. I just turned 60 in May. Thank you. Never been married, never had children. And I knew I kind of knew at a young age that, well, in my young adult life, that I didn't really want to be a mother. And that was okay, right? Now some people feel pressured, like, oh, I got to be married, I got to be, have children. But I knew that for me, that wasn't the case. And so being able to choose that for myself, and choose my career, education. I may not have my own biological children, but I am an auntie, I am a godmother, and I mentor a lot of young women. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of that if I had my own personal children. And I have to say, for mothers, hats off. Hats off, because I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't do it. And so being able to have access to contraception, being able to choose my path, is important to me. And so making sure that I have that right, and women have that right, people have that right, I think is important. And I can't believe that, at this, I say this all the time, at this time in our life and this year, that we're still fighting for stuff. Why are we still fighting for this stuff? I don't even know, right? It's baffling to me. So I heard you bring up Mr. Klein, and that's all I'm gonna say. I don't, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. This is important, and this is definitely a victory tour for us. And so I'm very happy to be one of those advocates for you, and using my platform to elevate this topic for you, this bill for you. And I told you I will use my platform in any way that you need, because this not only is important for us as women, but we should have the right to whatever we want to do with our bodies. And for me, I chose not to have children. My sister, she chose to have one child, and so she talks about her IUD all the time. She wanted one child, and she had her son, and we celebrated his graduation not too long ago, and that's the path she chose for her life. So whatever, if that's what we want to do, we should have the right and the access to do so. So that's my little tidbit for me. And whenever you need me, wherever you need Harrisonburg, give me a call. I'm surprised Frida hasn't come back.
She's in Alabama. We're on a nation, or Mississippi.
She's in Alabama.
Mississippi. We're on a
Mississippi is worse.
Mississippi.
What's she doing down there?
I think we're fighting to pass the Right to Contraception Act in Mississippi, and also calling on some members of Congress down there to pass the Right to Contraception Act. But I'm not sure I'm allowed to tell anybody this, but closely guarded secret, there's actually 3 freedoms.
What? Do they all look alike? I would love to hear the reaction she's getting in Mississippi. Where is she in Mississippi? Do you know?
I think they're in Jackson.
Oh.
We need to wire up with a live mic. Get all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if she's like out at the mall somewhere.
Yeah, they may have been going both to Alabama and Mississippi, but yeah, so this is a part of a greater national tour and push that we're doing this week, both to mark the anniversary of Griswold, which was Sunday, and also to do a push around that discharge petition for the Federal Right to Contraception Act, and see if we can get some folks on the record there. And I do think it's doable. I mean, when the bill came up for a vote in 2022, we had 8 Republicans vote for it. So that is more than the margin we would need. I don't think they're all still there, but that's more than the margin that we would need to be able to force a vote on this bill. So hopefully we can do that. I do want to be mindful of time because I know Eleanor has to leave a little bit earlier. And is it okay if I share?
Yeah.
Or you can share why you're leaving early and then
I've
tell
got
us a bit.
IUDs to place this afternoon. I appreciate being invited here today. I often think about advocacy and what I do in rooms and in private, and I'm not as good at this, like the speaking and being in public, and I appreciate everyone who is, because you're helping protect my ability to talk to women and families in rooms and feel like I can prescribe contraception and all kinds of things in a way that is safe as a woman who owns a women-owned business who treats reproductive health. That is a scary place to be right now. So really huge for all of us. I thought a lot about what I wanted to say today, and I was a very young teen single mom. I got my GED. I came from a family that was not well off, and really had to fight through early adulthood to get where I am. I have 5 wonderful children. I would not take them back, but it was hard. It was hard to claw my way through and raise them, hopefully well, through that. And I am really glad to be able to give, when I was thinking about this, my daughters an option to have. I have 2 adult daughters who have long-acting contraception and are in college or graduated from college without babies, which is a huge feat in my family. So, we're expanding generation gaps and choices, but also for my sons. I think we talk a lot about our daughters, but our boys have reproductive questions and potential too. And so, I have a generation of kids coming up that, will have, it feels like may have fewer choices even than I did. And that's really terrifying. And then I hear people talk about contraception, I hear people say this is more than just preventing pregnancy, which is true. We want to talk about the medical things that we use contraception for, but I don't think we can say it's not just about preventing pregnancy, because women are still dying having babies. So it's not just preventing pregnancy. We have an abysmal maternal mortality rate in this country, particularly for the people who have more limited access to contraception. So the people who are going to struggle to get contraception are more likely to die having babies. And we don't want to talk about that because it sounds terrible and it sounds hard, but it's real. I mean, people are really, the long-term morbidity and mortality associated with birthing children is a real risk still in this country and around the world. But as a developed nation, it's really a shame that our maternal morbidity and mortality is what it is. And we should have choices about how and when and how many babies we want to have or not have. So I think this is a really important thing. And we, those of us who aren't talking loudly are often talking quietly behind closed doors. And I think advocacy works in all of those places. And we need more people who can sit behind closed doors and offer real conversations to people, because I think that that's also lacking. You can let me prescribe, but if we don't have enough of us who are talking to families, dispelling myths, offering options, respecting choice, then the ability to prescribe it becomes, limited by the number of people willing to have those conversations with families. So we still have a lot of work to do, but really grateful for the progress that's being made and the fight that's being fought.
All right,
So,
and thank you for what
yeah,
you do.
thank you.
You said a couple things that I was taking notes on what you were saying that reminded me of some other things that I wanted to share with you. One, speaking of the maternal mortality rate, I think it's important to name too, the Black maternal mortality rate is so much higher. And Congresswoman McClellan, who did our press call with us yesterday, shared that she almost died in childbirth with her second child, and if she did not have an IUD, she could die, if she were to get pregnant again. So I think that's really important to be thinking about in terms of what you're saying, and in terms of it's not just preventing pregnancy, it's also protecting our own lives. And then specifically on IUDs, since you're about to go insert some IUDs today, just we saw in fighting for this bill, some of the attacks were leveled against IUDs and emergency contraceptives specifically in terms of the misinformation. Some of the opponents, most extremist Republicans who opposed the bill, argued, and this is inaccurate, like the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists would tell you this is inaccurate, but that IUDs cause abortions, or that emergency contraceptives cause abortions, which is patently untrue. But we saw this play out. It was a few years ago. It was even before we formed it, but I did work at the General Assembly. Former Senator Jill Vogel, she was speaking on the floor. There was a lot of press on this at the time. I think it may have been around 2019. But in the state budget debate, there is a state program, or was at least a pilot program, to fund LARCs, the long-acting contraceptives for low-income women, and she wanted to keep IUDs out of that program because she felt that they caused abortions. And one of the points that Congresswoman McClellan made yesterday that I think is also for people to understand is, she said that because she's over 45, and when you're over 45, that is still childbearing age for some women, that it's safer to have an IUD than to be on the pill once you age and can run into more problems with blood pressure. So for anyone to interfere with what form of contraception our doctors tell us works the best is appalling. So just wanted to make that point. Penny, if you were on that call with us yesterday, and I really love how grounding your story is, because one of the things that our bill patron delegate Marcia Price had said when she was addressing her colleagues directly on the floor, was that it actually wasn't that long ago before women were guaranteed a right to contraception. And she said it was in some of y'all's lifetimes.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
It was in my lifetime.
Right? So I wanted to let you go ahead and share your story, which I think will kind of continue to ground the conversation.
Okay. I'm from Franklin County. I grew up in Franklin County, Virginia, which is about 2.5 hours from here. And I'm number 9 of 10 children. So I was born in 59, so I'm currently 66. And so I could definitely relate to what you were saying. And it's interesting because when you live in a time frame that you have certain freedoms, you just assume that they have always been there. Yeah. And so I was born in 59, this passed in 65, and that's actually when my last sibling was born in 1965, which is my younger brother. And I didn't realize until I started working with then Senator Hashmi, and now, of course, Lieutenant Governor Hashmi, when she was working on this particular bill, that it actually used to be against the law for contraception. So then I started looking at my mother and the community that I grew up in. Yeah. No wonder she had 10 children. No wonder I know people with 13 children. No wonder I know people with 21 children. Mm-hmm. And if you had 10 children, also there were miscarriages along the way. That's a lot on a woman's body. And my mother was pregnant from the time she was, had children from the time she was 18 until she was 45. Wow. From 8, and so that's really considered our people's most productive time. Yeah. And that is what many people are trying to take us back to. Mm-hmm. Because if you're having children, 10, 15, 20 children, from the time you're 18 to 45, then you can't be sitting around like we are today, mm-hmm. having conversations, or in the workplace doing work and contributing to society. They want us back at home, pregnant and having children. And so I just look at that, and I can't imagine having 10 children.
Right.
You know, it's a good thing we grew up on a farm because, you know, we could go out and we worked on the farm. We had plenty to eat because we worked on the farm. I mean, we lived on a farm. But I cannot imagine living in a city with 10 children. And then, as I said, the, what do you call it, the impact that has on your health and your body and mentally. And then, like I said, if you had 10 children, I know that my mother had at least 5 miscarriages. So that's just a lot. And I know that she loved each and every one of her children. And she loved the family that she was able to build with my dad. But I also saw the joy that she had when she had 7 daughters that had a choice with regard to their life because of the laws of contraception. And I cannot imagine this new generation going back to a time frame where you don't have those choices to make, as you said you did, and as you said you did, and being able to make the choices to go to college, to work, or to do whatever it is that you want to do. Because when you have children, they're great, but I don't have any. And so I'm looking for a farm. Yeah. I have plenty of nieces and nephews, and I love them to death. But you know, I don't have it. But I see the work that it takes, and I help do the work that it takes. And so I'm just thankful that I grew up in a time where I had the choices of whether I wanted to have children or not have children because of contraceptions. And I just can't imagine this next generation going back in time. And that is why they want to send us back in time. It's power. It's about power. Because if you're at home raising 10 children, as I said, I know families with 21 children, you're not somewhere making an impact or contributing to society in any other way other than raising those children.
I have to say thank you for sharing that, because by you just naming all of this, it just hit for me, because my father is 4 out of 9.
Yeah.
And when you said it, I was like, that's exactly why, right? Because he's 80, right? So that was that time that they were just having babies, right? And he has, he's 4 out of 9.
And I'm 66, and my younger brother just turned 61, so he was born in 65.
Yeah.
And it just never crossed my mind that this is why in my community, 10, that's the norm, that's the average.
Right.
So,
right.
And it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And it's so much work on our bodies.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't imagine having 10
Because my
children.
grandmother died young.
Yeah.
She died in her, she was probably maybe 59 or 60. She died young, right? And she had miscarriages in between as well.
And you never think about the miscarriages. The only reason I know about the miscarriages was actually on my birth certificate. That I was like number 9, and that there had been miscarriages. Not something my mother talked about, but I cannot imagine from 18 to 45, the many times that she was pregnant and carrying children and childbirth. I mean, when you see childbirth, you see what it is, and even the complications even before you get to having that child. All the things that it does to your body.
Yeah, and Penny, I was thinking as you were talking, and as you were talking, Mayor, too, like I too have chosen not to have children, and because I like my life the way it is, and I think about what, and I like children, I like my friends' children, my cousins' children, but I think about how much it's like when I just think about my day to day and running a business and doing this advocacy work. Like for me personally, I admire women who can do both, but for me personally, I don't see how I could. There's only so many hours in the day, so like I don't see how I could make that work. But another reason that I
and I don't think I've shared this at an event before, but another reason why, but since this is a roundtable and we're among friends and it's a victory tour, another reason why I take contraception is to manage, I take the pill to manage very difficult periods. And I was just thinking this morning, if I were not taking contraception, I would have made it to this event. Because I'm always going to power through and do my job and run my business and really work for my clients. But I'd be in pain. I would be very tired. I would lack focus. And I'd probably be a little grouchy. And y'all probably wouldn't like me very much. Like, you're just saying I sound joyful. I'm like, that's because I have contraception. So there, and something I've learned doing this work is that women have many different health conditions, endometriosis, polycystic ovary system, or PCOS, which I didn't know about as a condition until Delegate Price, who is our bill patron, has publicly shared her story about how she wouldn't be able to be a delegate. She wouldn't be able to be a state legislator and carry this bill if she did not have an IUD because of PCOS. And so with that, Michaela, I think you had a health story you might be willing to share along those lines.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
And why should you have to power through? And why should other people be making a decision with regard to you having to power through other than you and your doctor?
Exactly.
And that's all.
No, I appreciate that.
Before I share my story, I never really thought about that. My grandma, she was like one of 10, and my aunts, they have like 20 siblings, and I was like, I think sometimes I'll be 31 on Saturday, that we do take, we don't think, that this is stuff that has to be fought for because we were born, with the right to contraceptive. Because I was like, why do they have so many kids?
There we go.
Right.
Yeah, so I got my first period when I was 14, and everything was fine. And then once I hit 16, I was very heavy playing softball and all these things. And then one day, my aunt was like, Michaela, you haven't asked me to buy you, tampons in a while. What's going on? I was like, I don't know what's going on. I used to have regular periods, and you're right. And so we went to the doctor, and she had talked to me about PCOS, and I went through this study, and it turned out that I had it. And so then after the study, when my periods did come, they were painful, like to the point where I had to miss softball games. And so my aunt took me to an OBGYN, and she discussed it with me, and she put me on birth control, and it helped. I had gained a lot of weight, and we didn't know why, and that's when I learned about PCOS, and it's been a challenge. And then a couple years ago, my doctor and I had a conversation about whether I wanted to have kids or not, and I said, a lot of times I don't, but also I want to be able to have that choice if I do decide that I might want to have a child. And so I ended up having a gastric sleeve last year, and that has really helped too with the contraceptives. I've been able to lose weight, and now my periods come regularly, and I'm still on the pill just so I don't have really bad cramps and all that stuff. But I have to just really give a shout out to my OBGYN. She really listened to me, and she was just very respectful, and she walked me through everything. She wasn't like, you need to do this. She would discuss everything with me, and she's just really helpful. And so I'm thankful that if I want to have a kid, I can have one. If I don't want to have kids, that's cool too. I love being an aunt. I love being a cool godmom, and I love to give them back. But also, one of my very best friends, we've been friends for 24 years, she's always said that she didn't want to have kids, and she's always been on the pill, and she got strep throat and got on an antibiotic, and they don't always tell you that your antibiotic will mess up your birth control. And so she called me, and she said, I have something to tell you. And I said, what? She was like, I'm pregnant. And I was like, girl, you ain't pregnant. And she was like, Michaela, no, I really am. And I was like, oh. And she said, she talked to the doctor, and they didn't tell her that her antibiotic could counter that. And so I went with her, and and she had an abortion. She never wanted kids, and I think that sometimes people just assume people just want to kill babies or they're negligent and all that stuff, and it's just some education needs to be done.
Well, and I think that's the importance of, you know, having these conversations and talking about women's health. And I'm embarrassed to admit this because I'm working for Americans for Contraception, but until I started working for them, I didn't know what an IUD looked like. And I was like, oh, like, somebody's like, oh yeah, there's an IUD on your logo. And I was like, oh. That's what it looks like. So I was one of the people for whom Frida was educational, but like, you know, I think talking about women's health can be such a taboo. So that's why I'm just like very grateful so many people are sharing your stories today. And I want to recognize Vic Bermudez has been on this journey with us as well. I think you've spoken at our events dating back to 2024. Did want to shout out our partners at Planned Parenthood. I believe connected us to you, and Planned Parenthood has been an incredible partner. They've been on the road with us for a lot of events. Their executive director, Jamie Lockhart, wanted to be here today. Wasn't able to make it, but she is actually an alum of JMU, so she was very bummed out that she couldn't come back to Harrisonburg. But yeah, Jamie has connected me to Vic, and just wanted to let you speak a little bit and share any reflections you'd like to share with the group.
Yeah, just to share with y'all, I started